Engine fire is the most hazardous situation that a flight crew can be faced with. In certain circumstances, such as the breakage of turbine, it may lead to catastrophic loss of the aircraft within a very short space of time. Okay, back to topic. Qantas Flight 32 was to take on its second part of the trip on a transit in Singapore from London to Sydney. The pilot in command, Captain Richard, alongside with his first officer Matt Hicks, was ferrying 24 cabin crews and 440 passengers at that time. Cleared for takeoff, the aircraft took off at local time 9:57 am and proceeded to climb to their designated altitude. Shortly after 4 minutes of takeoff, at 7,000 feet, two loud bangs in seconds apart were heard. ECAM shows an engine failure sign on engine number 2, together with a few other warnings that have no links with the engine. It was so random, we didn't know what had happened. The engine of number 2 blew off and caught fire. The captain knows that he is running out of time. The explosion has caused a puncture in the left wing of the aircraft. He has to land his aircraft as fast as possible, which means turning back to Singapore. This is QF32 requesting emergency landing in Singapore. Roger, QF32, just turn only. Okay, so let's turn the plane around. The captain rolls the aircraft to the left to check if the flight controls are in working condition. The captain now has to carefully adjust the speed. Too fast and they will run out of runway. Too slow and they will stall. And either both way, everybody is gonna pass away. Just as they approach landing, the pressure increases inside the cockpit. Just a few feet above the ground, the stall warning lights up. Never were they happier to hear that. After the hard landing, the aircraft has to stop in the shortest time possible to prevent overshooting the runway. Finally, after a grueling battle of almost 2 hours, Qantas 32 came to a safe halt with 150 meters of runway to spare.
I'm Clarence, the air crash investigator for Qantas 32, and today I will explain about the damage, cause and impact of the incident on the engine. The cause of the fire was a fatigue cracking in the start pipe of the engine that resulted in oil leakage. This was a manufacturing flaw from the Rolls-Royce Trent 900 engine, as the inaccurate alignment of the start pipe during the counter boring process resulted in one side of the same start pipe having increased stresses from the operating movement of the high pressure and intermediate pressure hub, thus becoming too thin to resist fatigue fracturing. The uncontained engine failure was the result of an internal engine fire in the high pressure and intermediate pressure bearing support assembly that heated the intermediate pressure turbine drive arm until the material failed. A fatigue crack had formed in the wall of the oil feed start pipe over a period of time. The crack reached a size that permitted the release of oil as an atomized spray into the buffer space between the high pressure and intermediate pressure bearing chamber. It was sufficiently hot within this chamber for the oil spray to auto-ignite. The fire propagated through the bearing chamber buffer space, eventually impinging upon the intermediate pressure turbine disc, resulting in the separation of the disc at the drive arm. The disc fractured into 3 main sections that had sufficient energy to penetrate the engine case and exit at high speed. Sections of the intermediate pressure disc and associated debris impacted and damaged the aircraft structures and systems. Firstly, the damages caused includes electrical wiring locating at the leading effective of the left wing. This affected the flight control in alternate mode, landing gear control and indicator to have warnings, spoiler and aileron controls were reduced, thus rendering the slats unavailable. Auto thrust and auto land were inoperative and pilots had to manually steer the aircraft. multiple brake system messages occurred and engine anti-ice and air data sensor messages were popping up. The center of gravity error messages were also shown at the same time. Left wing pneumatic bleed were leaking and the wing was being partially punctured with fuel leaking out of it. Part of the nacelle also dropped off at Batam, Indonesia. The avionics system overheated and the number 1 engine generator disconnected. All in all, the impact caused was that the fire led to the release of the intermediate pressure turbine disc, and the IPT disc split into 3 high energy fragments and caused structural and system damages. This in turn caused the segregated wiring routes to be cut. Hence, as a result, engine 1 could not shut down after landing, and during flight, engine 2 was not able to run, and hence Qantas 32 had to depend on engine 1, 3 and 4. Engine 1 and 4 were in degraded mode, while engine 3 was in alternate mode.
Due to the severity of the incident, involved parties introduced certain improvement and changes. Immediately after the incident, an airworthiness directive was introduced affecting 20 A380 aircrafts that had accumulated over 1,300 hours of flight. Those aircrafts with under 1,800 hours of flight were to be inspected within 6 weeks or 84 flights, while those with more than 1,800 hours of flight were to be examined within 4 days or 14 flights. On 8th February 2012, the checks were extended to cover all 68 A380 aircrafts in operation. Rolls-Royce first took steps to identify the engines affected by the non-conforming oil feed stub pipes and either remove them or ensure their safe continued operation. Rolls-Royce then introduced a software that will automatically shut down a Trent 900 engine before its turbine disc overspeeds. Airbus is now working with airports and firefighting agencies to develop an agreed safe method for these agencies to externally shut down the manufacturer's engine when the need arises. The agreed procedures will then be incorporated into Airbus's rescue and firefighting chart and distributed to those involved.
On Qantas Flight 32, the investigation team found a ruptured oil start pump which caused the engine fire. When we received the pump at our Rolls-Royce headquarters, our team of expert investigators realized that the pipe was smaller on one side as compared to the other. This was extremely strange, and in fact the smaller side was of 0.35mm thickness. It's no wonder that Qantas Flight 32 experienced the engine fire that it did in air. After going through our manufacturing logs, our team discovered that this manufacturing error that caused one side of the pipe to be smaller was due to misalignment of the pipe during the manufacturing process.
My name is Matt Hicks, and I was the co-officer of QF32. I operated the ECAM. It's a system that monitors aircraft functions and releases them to the pilot. On a normal simulation, the ECAM will turn around 2 errors. But on flight day, we received 50 errors. That escalated quickly. I had to decipher each and every error message and solve them within a short time before moving on to the next error. If I did not solve the error quickly, the situation will worsen and more errors will pop up. You blokes think it's easy, but this is what it feels like.
He's right. Just let him follow his instincts.
All battle groups deploy drones. Protect your carriers. Allied, you're Squadron 5. Engage! This is suicide.
So, thanks to my superior intellect and my useless pilot, we managed to solve the errors and prevent a catastrophe. As a suggestion to Airbus, we believe that the ECAM system should be able to decipher the problem and autocorrect the redundant errors. That way, I would have less problems to deal with and less a chance to pass away.
I feel that young pilots nowadays are not as competing and hungry anymore. Back to our time, we find every opportunity to read about aircraft journals and accidents. Everybody was eagerly borrowing books from the library. And now, all they do is just go back to the hotel rooms and play computer games. They don't even socialize with us anymore. How are they going to learn from us even these days? One thing they could do is probably learn from Singapore Polytechnic. This is semestral bonding session yet, whereby they get $10 every semester for each student for their lunch session. Perhaps Qantas could do the same thing in doing the bonding session too, whereby the young budding pilots could learn from that. Oh, retarded.